Welcome back to another episode of the Dog Training Audio Experience Podcast. As usual, our goal with this podcast is to give you tips, tricks, and knowledge when it comes to all things about dogs, dog training, dog behavior, and beyond. I'm your host, Erika Gonzalez. I'm a certified dog trainer and behavior consultant and the founder of From Dusk Till Dog. As always, if you like this podcast and want to support our podcast or our other online content, please check out our Patreon support page at patreon.com/From Dusk Till Dog. And with that, let's jump in to this episode. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. Today's episode is staying on our spooky theme this month, and we are going to help you address your dog's fears and phobias about going to the vet. Whether your dog is already showing some distress about it, or if you want to be proactive in helping your new puppy or new dog not develop this fear, we will be giving you tips today on how to work on it. My guest today is Quin Longino. She's a certified professional dog trainer and the owner of Pup Professor, located in San Francisco, California. Welcome to the podcast, Quin. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Erika. I'm excited.
And we have to introduce who is on your lap for those watching, of course, this sweet little thing.
This is Pilsner. For anybody who's just listening, he is my 13 maybe-ish Chihuahua. I adopted him as a senior from Muttville, the senior dog rescue. And he's pretty perfect.
I love him, and I'm so glad he could join us today as well. So thank you for doing that. My dogs are asleep behind me. I'm going to show those watching on their little bed there. And normally I have to say real quick, full disclosure, I'm a little type A, as if that's shocking to anybody who knows me at all. But I normally kick them out of the room because I'm like, I got to focus. And, they're usually just laying there anyway, but just to make sure. But today I'm letting them in to relax. So we'll see how it goes. And anyway, thank you for this. I'm so excited to have you on. And we're going to, as usual, jump right into it. So vet visits. Let's describe, I'd like us to kind of go through, and I'd love to hear from you first on just what are we looking for generally? I know there's so many little signals dogs can do, but what are we looking at when we're looking at a dog who quote unquote is nervous or scared of the vet or the process of going to the vet or going into the office? What are some dog body language signals that a pet parent can look for to recognize their dog's feeling uncomfortable?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, so many signals can be really subtle that we wouldn't even pick up on, or I think especially a new pet parent or the average pet parent might not even notice. But some of the bigger ones I would say that you could keep a lookout for is either, that tucked tail, pretty nervous seeming, or a little bit stiff. Sometimes that side eye, that big whale eye where they're looking at you with you can see a lot of the whites of their eye. I guess in more extreme cases, even just like exit searching, kind of that panicked, I got to get out of here mode.
Right. Almost like an escape room. Like where's the place where I can get out of here? That was me at the haunted house a couple weekends ago, trying to get through. So yeah, I feel like that's a really good, I'm glad you brought up kind of exit seeking, because I some of the other ones, I think people start to notice their dog's tail is tucked, and we still want to go over that because some people might not notice it as much. But the exit seeking and the frozen kind of freeze that you were saying, so when they seem stiff or they're just not moving at all and they seem all of a sudden like a statue, yes, they could be tolerating and not growling, barking, lunging, the big ones that we know of, but that's still saying, I'm not thrilled with this and I'm uncomfortable. So I'm glad you brought that up. Something else that I like to touch on that I know and for those listening want to help a little further on those more subtle ones is, my Jade is infamous for the yawning. So she will just start yawning. And if she's uncomfortable, the yawns all of a sudden will be very, very prominent. And a lot of people mistake that for the dog's tired, or they just don't even notice it's a thing. They just think the dog's yawning. And so again, context matters. Yes, your dog could be tired at some yawn in their life, but most of the time it's related to some uncertainty, fear, or just, sometimes dogs are just displacing a little bit of how they're feeling there. So many little things, but generally speaking, if your dog's yawning a lot when you go into the vet office, they're probably feeling a little bit unsure.
Sure. Yeah. Those displacement behaviors, as you called them, that's exactly more subtle signs that I think some people don't know about. So like lip licking, if out of context, right? Like if they hadn't just had some water or treat or something, even like scratching or kind of just starting to sniff and disengaging.
Oh,
Those
yeah.
are things that you could look for to give you like just smaller signs that your dog's a little uncomfortable.
I love that you said that too, the scratching. I've had so many dogs, even in training, like if they're trying to guess something that we're doing, I've seen them, I call it checking their phone.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you're like, I don't know what to do. I'm going to check my Instagram. Like we all do that, right? Or if you're nervous on a date and you're just like sipping your water, even though you're really not thirsty at all, you're just doing it to like do something. Sometimes dogs will start sniffing all of a sudden a lot, you know, not just like they're actually looking for something, but really just like, I'm busy, I'm sniffing down here, or they scratch a lot. So love hearing those more subtle ones that people can watch out for and try to see, you know, is my dog really, really nervous? Are they just not feeling it that much? And it will vary, but pay attention to those little things.
100%.
Yeah. And, you know, I think a lot of people want to know, and it's so hard to always pinpoint, but we can try to give some educated guesses. What do you think, you know, why do you think dogs develop a fear of the vet? Because a lot of people want to know the why. Why is my dog acting like this? And I always jokingly say, you know, we could guess all day. We won't always know exactly because we can't speak to them in English, which I wish we could. But, you know, we won't know. But what's some educated guesses that one can make from a professional? I like hearing, you know, your thoughts on this of how dogs develop this fear.
Yeah. So I think for a lot of pet dogs, especially from their first initial vet visits, you're getting poked and prodded and all kinds of stuff. So it doesn't always start the best. And so they could have a long history of some negative experiences at the vet. But the big things, I kind of would chunk it into two big categories of the fear things. So the people, right? And what the people are doing. Is it looking all over your ears, giving you vaccines, maybe sticking a thermometer somewhere that's unpleasant?
Yes.
And the other bucket I would think is the environment. So lots of thresholds, there's weird flooring, there's new smells and sounds. We might hear a bunch of dogs barking, but we don't see them. Lots of things in the environment that might be new or make the dog super nervous.
Yeah, the environment, you know, I know a lot of us trainers say that behavior is usually in the environment in some way, where it's, you know, what's around, how many dogs are in the lobby, how many dogs barked or came over to sniff your dog, or how many people are greeting you on the way in when you're signing in and going in, and who's in the room and what's their demeanor like, and all those layers that we have to look out for. So yeah, great point there. And I think too, something to hone in on to go off of that is people, you get a puppy or you get a new dog that's older, you know, it doesn't always have to be a puppy, but you know, you bring them to the vet, and let's say it is a puppy. Let's go all the way back to like an easy example. You bring a puppy into the vet and we're just kind of doing it. I don't think that people realize, understandably, they're not dog trainers, which is why we have this podcast. But, you know, if you have a puppy and you're going to the vet, you know, you're just kind of doing it. We're not really thinking about, how do I make sure that my dog's loving this? How do I make sure that my dog's going to feel the most comfortable? What does my dog need during this visit? You know, how are they feeling? So reading up on dog body language and trying to, you know, prepare, which we're going to get into in a moment, prepare for a happy vet visit, especially in the beginning, to make it a positive experience. I think, just as you were saying and getting at there, it's just a lot of times dogs are not viewing the vet as a positive experience. You know, I mean, I hate going to the doctor who's like, yes, I love this, I'm going to go get poked at and whatever, if you have to get some type of procedure or vaccination or whatever done on you, it's not pleasant. So if we want to make it pleasant, we have to be proactive about that. Yeah. So on that note, for new puppy parents, what is something that they can do to help proactively ensure their puppy won't be scared or as scared at the vet? Right. What are some things you would say to work on?
Yeah. So I think with any early puppy thing, it's, you know, if you're hopefully in that socialization window, it's a great time to just pair anything that could be spooky with good treats. So high value treats, I'm usually thinking about, especially if we're at the vet, we're going what we would kind of call like human food type of so your chicken, turkey, hot dogs, we want the good stuff for a potentially scary situation. And I was joking with my boyfriend last night when we were talking about this, about how it's like treats are raining from the sky when potential scary stuff is around. And he was like, oh, you're Oprah. You're just pulling.
You get it. You get it.
Yeah, like, treats for you and for you. And I was like, oh God. But yeah, I was like, that's kind of spot on. I like that. I might have to steal it. So
I like it. Steal that.
So just pairing anything potentially scary with good stuff, and potentially scary things mean good things happen for your dog. So hopefully we can create this. Ooh, that means peanut butter. I like that.
Yes. I love that. And I love the Oprah, everyone gets some of this type of thing, because, and I think something really good to take away from that statement too, is that it's not contingent on anything. So this just popped into my head right now and I'm going to go for it because I'll forget. But, sometimes people feel like their dog can't get a piece of food unless they're being relaxed at the vet, or if they even look nervous and don't give it to them, they didn't earn it, or they have to sit first every time, and things like that go off to things at home as well, and go further than vet visits. But your dog, don't have it be contingent upon anything. It's just, again, the scary thing, or we're here just being in the presence of the vet, or in the office, or in the examination room, or the things coming out, before it even touches your body, all good stuff. Don't have it be, you have to be this way or that way or another way necessarily in that context, because what we're trying to do is create associations, not necessarily train your dog to like do behaviors yet. We're just trying to say, being here, seeing this, being around these people, good stuff. So I love the food. I love food. Food's wonderful. And I think, I love it in my personal life and also for my dogs on training levels. But and again, I love that we talked about value in the food, because you don't want to bring your dogs regular meals or dry food or whatever you're feeding. You want to bring something extra special. Think like anniversary dinner level of things. You want to bring out that steak and chicken and things like that, whatever your dog's allowed to have, but really bump it for those visits. And so, I think being proactive is super important. And I think another thing that we can throw out there is like those, what we call like happy vet visits, of just go to the vet when you actually don't need to. I know that's a lot, but if you have an hour on a weekend, or even a half hour, if you're not far from your vet's office, build a good rapport with them, go in, walk around the lobby, give your dog some of that anniversary steak or chicken or whatever, and then just get in the car and leave. And then another time, have them go in and hop on the scale that's in the lobby and give them stuff and then leave. And just having it be, we're not only here during times where you're getting poked and prodded, even if I am giving you food, doing those happy visits just to get to know the staff, to walk around, to get familiar with what the smells are like and what the floor feels like, and all that stuff is going to be super helpful, especially with puppies. So I think that's another good thing that I got to do a lot with Jade when she was a puppy, that helped her not be so, upset there when we go.
Yeah, I've done that with a lot of client puppies. Just if we're walking down the street in San Francisco and we walk by the vet's office, obviously before COVID times, because we still haven't been able to go in there with our dogs lately, but just hopping in, treat, and hop on right out and keep going. It can be a nice way to kind of pair the vet with something good before they have that negative experience or potential experience.
Yeah, you're kind of doing insulation a little bit around the actual real ones, doing some demo stuff. But yeah, I love doing that. And that's so helpful for younger dogs, especially. And I do want to say, I know you mentioned trying to do this ideally. Not everyone lives in an ideal situation, but ideally before the puppy socialization window closes. And I just want, for those listening, that means somewhere around, 14 to 16 weeks. I know it's debatable, a week or two here or there with some folks, but generally speaking, before 4 months or so is that more ideal than not. Not that you're not going to be able to do anything after 4-ish months, but you want to try to get it before then if you do have a young puppy.
Yeah, absolutely. And neither of my dogs I got as young puppies. Pilsner was a senior when I got him. My other dog was my guess is 10 months or so. That doesn't mean I haven't done a lot of work around it or there haven't been positive things happening, but I know so many people have gotten puppies lately, so it's worth it to put in that extra time in the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Like I was luckier with Jade when we got her. She was, I mean, I guess, around 8, 9 weeks old. So I was like, all right, great. We still have that puppy time. But with Freddie, I mean, I love Freddie, but he had a lot of behavioral issues and he certainly was not interested in the vet. And we had to do a lot of work with that and cooperative care stuff. So yeah, it's never too late in my opinion. And I'm sure that's what you're getting at too. But ideally, if you're picking up a puppy at 8 weeks or you're adopting a dog at 8 weeks old, use those first few months together to combat these issues. That's better than most of the other things you're going to be concerned about that you can teach later. I digress anyway. I won't go down that road. So that's a whole nother episode. All right. So let's say we don't have a new puppy, but we have a dog who is already very nervous at the vet and they're already having issues. We're looking at this dog. They're debilitated with anxiety or just showing they're really uncomfortable. What are some things a pet parent can do to prepare their more adult dog or adolescent dog as best as possible to have a better experience overall? So aside from like taking all this time, like we could go into the training of train this, train that, and we will, touch on some skills after this, but I want to talk about, I'm a pet parent. Our vet visit is in a week. My dog's nervous. We have to go get this vaccination. They need the rabies shot or something that's just dire right now. What can I do? Let's say I'm allowed in the vet because I know there's different models right now with what's going on. And we could talk about maybe if you can't go in, there's not much, you could prep a little bit beforehand, but let's say we can go in. What are some things I can do? I don't have a ton of time to train all these skills, but I want to try my best to make this as positive and as good as possible. What are some things I can do to prepare for that to be a better experience overall?
Yeah, I would say bringing something good for your dog to work on. Obviously, I like to bring high value treats, but sometimes it can be nice if you bring like a Kong with peanut butter in it, or I love a licky mat. I think I've seen you use licky mats before.
Oh yeah, licky mat's favorite.
Oh yeah, I love a licky mat. Just that silicone mat, for anybody that doesn't know what I'm talking about. It's like a silicone mat that has like different textures and ridges, and the dog has to kind of lick whatever substance you put on. Pilsner, my old man, loves them. So if I'm going to the vet with him, which is his nightmare, then we're definitely bringing lots of good peanut butter, licky mats. Potentially, if you're thinking about a dog that's kind of fearful or will lunge and bark, or that you're more concerned about that reactivity, you could always do a little bit of muzzle desensitization before you go, just so you feel comfortable. There's nothing bad's going to happen. And then I also sometimes will like to do like a crate training, like especially with your dog, if you're working on crate training, if they do need to end up going into the vet for a larger procedure, like they're getting spayed or neutered, or God forbid anything bad happen, they're probably going to be crated before or after that procedure. Same if they go to the groomers. So having them already have that crate as their safe space might add a little bit like if they've never been in the crate and then they get thrown in there too, that's not going to feel any better. So if the crate is their safe space, that can be kind of helpful for them as well.
Yeah. And I think too, with the muzzle stuff, I think a lot of people don't think about that. And that is a safety thing. I think of that like a seatbelt. You have it on, you hope you don't need to have it be used, but it's there in case. So if you feel like your dog might bite the vet or might get snappy, or you're not sure as you just got this older dog and you've never been to the vet with them or whatever, and you want to be safe, not only for the safety of the veterinary staff, but also for your nerves. Because I know a lot of people inside are like, oh my God, going crazy, thinking their dog's going to snap at any moment. I think everyone can breathe a little bit easier, especially the pet parent, if their dog is muzzled, where they're not like, I'm going to be bringing somebody to the hospital with stitches. Luckily, we're at the vet, I guess. So I guess they're probably more prepared than other places. But, having that muzzle on your dog is going to make sure that you don't have a worse day than needed if your dog is going to snap or get mouthy on the staff. And, and I think too, some things that I do, and I know it's different depending on the dog, depending on the personal choice of the person that is bringing their dog in. I really try to, my dogs do best. This is not a recipe for everybody, disclaimer, but I do think it helps a lot of dogs. But I really try to bring them out on a nice sniffy decompression walk prior to our appointment. Maybe not right before we're going to go to the vet, but whatever, fit it in where you can. But I try to go and do a nice, at least a half hour. We drive up to the park. We look around. They're allowed to sniff and move about freely on a longer line or longer leash. And that way they get some of that energy out. I think it can go slightly worse if your dog's all pent up and hasn't been outside and hasn't had any activity in 5 days. Then you're like, all right, in the car to go to the vet. I think it's helpful to just get outside, get some sun on you, and have them sniff around and enjoy themselves prior to going to do this potentially stressful activity at the vet. And then another thing we do is, there's a lot of over-the-counter things, and I know only very few have any real efficacy to it. But with some of the vet behaviorists that I've worked on, and worked with them on certain behavioral cases, I know they also recommend this as an over-the-counter option. Some of them do anyway, of something like Adaptil, some type of spray, like calming spray. Now, I know Adaptil has shown some efficacy, so I'm just throwing this out there. If you are just trying to find something that might help, if it helps my dogs 5%, I'll buy it. Mm-hmm. So I think they enjoy the smell of it. I definitely feel like if it helps Freddie a little bit, I'll spray it on a towel 10, 15 minutes before, and he lays on that towel when we're at the vet. It just makes him feel comfortable. Is this going to help your dog be an angel? Absolutely not. But it may help the same way, in a weird human analogy, if you put on a diffuser or you light a candle or something that may relax you a little bit, but it's not going to solve your anxiety for the day. I wish. But it may help, or something like that. So that's something over the counter you can consider that does have some efficacy. So I'll bring something that smells good like that for my dogs, and I usually bring some type of mat, just for them to stand on, have traction, things like that. So yeah, I definitely think, preparation's key. That's what we're getting at. It's definitely good to prepare. Have more than you think you need. I brought a whole backpack filled with stuff one time, of just like my mat, all my treats, the spray. I just had everything because I just wanted to feel better that I had what I needed if I needed something. Absolutely. So yeah, definitely don't be ashamed to lug something in there that has all your stuff if you need to.
Yeah, you brought up the mat too, because those surfaces, like if they have to stand on that table, that'd be a little weird, especially that elevated surface, or on the scale. Lord knows my younger dog is not the kind of dog we're talking about. She thinks the vet is like a surprise party for her, where everyone's
love that.
She's like, this is the best day. My issue is I can't get her to sit still. She just wiggling all over the place. So I was trying to get her to her last vet visit to get her weight, and we had to be like, I guess 50-ish. Yeah. She would not stop wiggling, but she hadn't really experienced that big scale before, at least in a long time. So I think if I had been a little more thoughtful and had brought a towel or a mat in, it would have been a little bit easier for her.
Yeah, I love that she loves it that much. First of all, that's amazing. And that's what we all would love. That's amazing that you have that with her. And yeah, I mean, I cut up an old yoga mat. Like, none of this has to be something you even have to buy or go get something fancy, like a towel, like you said. I have a yoga mat. Lord knows I'm not using it for yoga. So I cut it up in half for the dogs. And so I roll that up, and it's easy to bring with me, or a towel's easy to bring with you. So, if you have something like that, bring it along. Even like one of those silicone kitchen, like bath mats, or if a kitchen mat with a rubber backing, a bath mat, a cheap one. You go to Walmart, pick up a bath mat. I love using those for all sorts of stuff, but bring something with you, and it might help your dog feel a little more comfortable. So I love talking about management. I talk about it all the time. I know us dog trainers talk about management a lot, but I like asking about management in terms of just like, things to avoid or what to look for. I guess what I mean by this is, like, as an example, how management can play a role in in avoiding our dogs getting more nervous about it or making it worse about these types of appointments, one example of management for me is when I first had Freddie and he was showing he did well the first time or two. I think he wasn't aware. He was like, it was kind of a fluke. It was like, oh, he's great. And that's why I never take your dog's behavior for granted. And by like time 3 or 4, he was like, no, F this. I don't want to do it. And I could tell he was nervous. He wasn't biting anybody or doing anything, but I know Freddie, I know my dog. And he was like, ugh. So when he had a bunch of vaccinations that were due and they needed to do a blood draw, it was like the yearly thing. He needed like all these things. I talked to my vet before we did anything. And I said, give me what's absolutely imperative to get done today. And then give me the things that are not as imperative to get done. And so we worked that way. We reversed engineered it from the most important thing down. And so when we got about 3/4 of the way through, he had enough. And so we put off a vaccination or two that were not as pressing. And, or like the blood draw or something like that. I forget what it was, but we left a couple things off of that visit. And I made another visit down the line when we could come back to that and do those again. So it wasn't all in one sitting. So I would recommend for those listening to ask your vet, if you have a dog that is nervous, say, what's getting done today? Are we doing a physical? Are we doing a blood draw? What vaccinations do we do? Okay. What do we absolutely need to get done first, and work from there? So that way you can stop if you need to, and you're not like, oh, we didn't get to the most important one and we're working from the wrong way. So that's one thing of management, is kind of like avoiding or, setting up the environment as best as I can. Is there any other tips like that, like managing it, playing a role, that you would recommend people consider?
Yeah. And I think if you are, or if some waiting rooms are open now, I don't know that a lot even are open. Still, you can't really sit in the waiting room with your pup even now. But if your dog gets more and more nervous and worked up by being in that environment already, can you sit in the car and have them come out and get you? Can you walk around the block or something like that, just so you're not having to have your dog kind of panic more and more as you're waiting in there if they're nervous about it?
That's such a good point. Yeah, I think I've seen dogs in the waiting room just growing in anxiety until they get called in. And most vets, I mean, I'm sure almost every single one of them, if you tell them, talk to them, say, my dog's nervous. I'm doing this for you guys too, so that they're not a mess for you and your staff. Vets understand that, and the staff. So I would just say, hey, here's my number. Could you guys text me? Could you guys give me a call? We're going to wait outside. Almost I can't imagine any vet office would be like, no, you have to sit here. So set those things up. And I have a lot of clients who've gone through like a back entrance to go into one of the vet rooms. I'm sure you've had clients had to do that.
Yeah, I forgot about it. It's been a while since going in there. So
I know. I'm like, let me go back. At some point, hopefully, we'll be able to go back in with our dogs. So this will be in prep for those that don't have that right now. I know in New Jersey it's a little mixed. I don't know exactly what's going on with it in certain offices, but I went the other route. Quick sidebar, my vet office, like many, if not all of them, at some point said no one's allowed in here. And I don't like that. And so, especially with Freddie. And so I hired a mobile vet. And at least if I was going to step away, they were in my home or they were in the driveway in the van, and I could maneuver that easier. So there are other options if your dog really is really uncomfortable and your heart will break if you drop them off like mine. There are other options to consider, but yeah, I love that, like going in another area or back door kind of VIP entrance. They have those for some vet offices and for these types of cases. So
yeah, that's a good point. And in San Francisco, Lord knows, I think there's like multiple apps you can download to have a vet come over to your house. Obviously not for large procedures or that. Just for your typical wellness visit, if they're more comfortable at home. Yeah, it's a nice option. I know my twin sister even said, they're on the East Coast, and she mentioned her vet will do home calls, which is nice as well.
That is nice. Wow.
Yeah, that offers that.
Yeah, I mean, I never thought to hire a mobile vet until all this happened. And I was like, okay, this isn't opening up anytime soon. And I had to start thinking about long term what we're going to do, working from home and all the changes we've all had to make of, transitioning. So it's nice to have that even as a backup option. Having more than one place you can get care for your dog in general is a good idea, especially with everything we've gone through, to make sure your dogs are cared for and you're getting what you need done. But yeah, I think the management stuff like that's so important. And again, I think it's things understandably people aren't thinking of in the moment of, okay, is sitting in the waiting room making this worse? Is going, at a certain time of day worse for my dog? Are they more amped up in the middle of the day? Are they more tired at a certain time? Maybe is that better to go then? And little things too, like making sure, I know it sounds weird, but like making sure the night before that you don't have a stressful, like don't have a huge, if your dog doesn't like big groups of people, or having your one uncle come over, don't have your uncle Bob over the night before and stress your dog out. And then you're going to the vet the next morning. Think about the day before. Again, if you're going to go do something that kind of stresses you out, you want to do some self-care the day before leading up to make sure you're not going over thresholds yourself. I know I'm very mindful of this now in my 30s about, okay, leading up to this, what do I got to do to have Erika be at her best? I'm going to talk about myself in third person, but yeah, like think about that with your dogs too. That all matters. So there's so many little things we can do like that will help make it less crappy. That's my goal. Doesn't have to be perfect, just less crappy. You're doing good.
Absolutely. Those dogs are never going to be like my weird younger dog and get so stoked about going into the vet. I think best case scenario, they may feel neutral about the vet.
Right.
A lot of might not ever get there, and that's okay. But they're gonna have to get that care.
Yes.
It is unavoidable. So yeah, I like that. Tell Uncle Bob to get out of there.
Yeah, Uncle Bob's not welcome. So yeah, like think about those things, and like you said, it's okay. The goal isn't that your dog's going to be some type of nightclub going gal or guy to show up and like think it's a party and it's like so fun. If you can, great. If that works out that way, I'm thrilled. But most of the time we're just going for it being better at any version of better. And we're all different. There's some days where Freddie's anxieties are, I could tell they're just a little more heightened, than others. We had a back patio put in and there was a bunch of dudes in our yard. We couldn't use our yard for about a week, like the backyard that he's used to peeing and pooping, going out, running around. And I had to start bringing him out front where we don't have the fence. And not that he would run away, but I'm respectful. And I put my dog on a leash and I go out front. And he was like, what the hell are we doing, lady? Like he would just look up at me like, I don't want to do any of this, sucks. I could see it in his face. And he was slightly stressed out for that week. I could tell he was slightly more, his anxiety was more elevated because of all the noise, the people, the trucks outside, all the equipment and the materials they had. And then his whole routine of going to how he goes to the bathroom was messed up. So, I pay attention to that and I knew he was having a bad week. And so I minded that for him and made sure that, all the other things we were doing that day were relaxing and good for him because I knew he was going through that. I say all that to say, if I had a vet visit that week, I would reschedule it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so, I think Freddie and Pilsner would be friends.
Yes. I love that.
When I try to get him to go to the bathroom, like, I was sleeping under this peacefully.
I know Freddie, he says so much with just looking at me. It's Jade's Jade could be a poker player. She's more like, she's very regal, I would call her. And Freddie is like one of those people that how they're feeling by like, that's me. I can't hide how I'm feeling very well in my face. So I just know that he's basically telling me off in the nicest way possible when we had to go through all of that. So thinking more about like skills and things that we can work on. I know there's so many like little things we can offer, but let's offer at least one or two that somebody could get started with. What we talk about, quote unquote, cooperative care. So I'd love to hear from you, Quin, on just what is cooperative care? What are these skills that can help us at the vet? And then what is one or two of your favorites that, depending on the case, you advise your clients to start with?
Yeah. So cooperative care, I think is great. It's more of a topic I think you hear about more lately than I had maybe in a few years ago. So it's really kind of working with your dog to have them feel comfortable and kind of a lot of times give you like I'm in or an I'm out, I'm done, and you listen to that. So for me, I've been working a lot on like a chin rest with my younger dog because she is very wiggly when I try and do like nail trims with her. So we've been working a lot on just like, can she settle her head on a pillow or something for a little bit of time? If she lifts it, she's saying I'm out. So I stop. So something simple like that. And then another one I would like, just in terms of like having to have your vet or your pet move around at the vet, working on different like positions just so they're not having to be handled as much. So maybe like a stand or laying on their side or something like that. I know you also just did I think you did a podcast on cooperative care a little while back. So that has a ton of information in it.
Yeah, thank you for plugging the other episode. Yeah, we did talk about like it was more heavy on like the skills. So yeah, like that, thank you. But yeah, the chin rest is a big one. And I love that you said body positioning because I remember early on when I had just signed up for dog training school and I was just like fresh, like Jade and I were fresh into it and I was learning everything I could. And we went to the vet and they kind of, they're trying to do their job. I don't blame them, but they didn't ask me or say, hey, we need to move her. It was just like, we got to get to the other side. And they just like wheelbarrow rolled her around. And I could tell she was like, what the hell is going on? And she got stressed from that. And then since that moment, I was like traumatized for her. And ever since then, I started, like, I tell the vet again, if you need her to move in a specific way, can you please let me know? And I'm happy to get her there. She knows this or she knows that, I could get her. So Jade knows side and all that stuff. So they can get underneath her or grab her if they need to without needing to handle her slightly in an upsetting fashion for her or abruptly. So I love that you mentioned that because again, something I think I didn't even think about it until something like that happened. I was like, oh, okay, maybe we should work on this to prevent that. So body position stuff's good. And I love doing, I love like mat training in particular for so many things, but teach your dog how to go to place on a mat, on a bed, whatever. Just do it for a million different reasons. But staying on the vet reason, I bring my little yoga mat, my cut up yoga mat. I'm super fancy. And I put that down and I can have Jade and Freddie, but he's so small. I'm usually just holding him and kind of working with him that way. But Jade can go to place and lie down, and then we could do side there, or we could do a chin rest there, or we could do that. Kind of is her station, so she knows that. And I think if a dog really, really knows how to do that, it can help them feel comfortable because they're like, oh, I know how to do that. All right, that's my spot. That's the mat where I get all the cookies. So let me go on there. It can help just redirect their brain and focus on a task that they're super familiar with. You want to familiarize this a lot before you go. Don't practice this the first time at the vet here, but load it up so much that they know without a doubt. And then you could try it. And even for my mobile vet, I have Jade go to the mat and that's where we start. And in the beginning, she didn't always stay on it. Just again, like to show people my dogs are not perfect. She got a little nervous and like got up and moved around. And I had to ask her to go back and she did. And so we take a break if she gets off. Those are again, what we call start button behaviors, and it can help you. Your dog's like, nope, I'm up. Then we stop, we take a break. So yeah, I love that. I love cooperative care stuff, chin rests and side, like Jade knows side really well, rest her head when she does that. Are we missing any like big ones? Any other ones that you like to train? I know I do touch sometimes, like my Jade will hold a touch, but I like chin rest better.
I love touch. I use touch for everything. I think it's an easy one since I've been working with so many puppies lately. It's a quick one that a lot of puppies pick up easily, and just to redirect their face, giving something else to do with their head. So I use that a lot. Oh gosh, there's so many.
Yeah, I love that you use touch a lot for the puppies because that is an easy one. By the way, we have an episode dedicated on how to teach touch, so go listen to that if you're curious about it. But I love touch that much that I dedicated an episode of the podcast to just touch. So go listen to that. But basically what it means is you teach your dog how to boop, that's my technical term, boop your hand with their nose or their face or whatever. I'll take any type of like connection to the hand. And so, you know, you call them and do a touch, put your hand out, and they'll come up and boop you, and you can give them a treat. This allows you to not only redirect, like you said, Quinn, get your dog focused on a task. It's usually very fun for dogs, unlike stay or something like they like already bopping around. So it's fun. If you reward it a lot, they already have a really positive feeling about it, and it helps move your dog around the examination room. So if you need your dog to stand all of a sudden and your dog might not know stand, then you can ask for a touch. Now they're standing, great, we have them. Or if you need them to move in a different area or turn around, you can even use touch for that to get them to kind of turn around, do a couple touches. I've had to do that for a couple client dogs in the vet. So whatever works, as long as your dog likes to do it and you've positively reinforced it, I'm all for whatever works here. So yeah, those are some good skills. And I like, you know, touching on this at the end here, just a misunderstanding. And now that I'm thinking of it, I don't mean to end this on like a misunderstanding and a mistake, like end on a negative. But as a trainer, I think sometimes it's valuable to help point out for people what is something to avoid, or something that like maybe our society views as a good idea, or something that's common practice that might not be helping their dog, or that might be making it worse, or whatever. So to help with this, I'm going to bring one that comes to my head first, which is when a dog is frozen. And this I just saw a TikTok video of this earlier, unfortunately. And it was of, you know, a dog at the vet. He needed to have a cone put on. So one of those things that goes around so they can't touch their paws or you know, lick themselves if they had surgery somewhere. And they don't have food, nothing's happening. They're just trying to corral this dog around the room, and they finally corner him and they put it on. And then he's completely frozen. He's just not moving a muscle. He looks like a statue, and the thing's on him. And then the person comes over and tries to feed him a treat, and he just doesn't move, doesn't care. And then they come with another treat, doesn't move, doesn't care. And everyone's kind of laughing about it, like kind of chuckling, like, oh, you know. And I think there is this, I think sometimes, you know, I know laughing's better than crying about it, but in this case, you want to try not to view it as a humorous thing that your dog's nervous, and really just try to empathize a little bit more about, my dog is really nervous, my dog's upset, and try to come from a place of empathy, versus where I think sometimes we view it as like funny, or the dog's being a baby about it, or, oh, you know, we've all heard like, oh, you're being such a wuss, like he's such a scaredy cat, and like things like that, where of course we want to make light of it and not get depressed over our dog's behavioral moments or issues. But I think that can make it much worse when you're holding a phone. Don't film your dog being nervous, please, on behalf of all of us trainers out here. So anyway, that's a like maybe not a mistake, but like a misunderstanding, something I think people need to move away from if possible.
Yes, dog shaming videos make me so angry.
I get triggered. I get reactive about that.
100%. So I kind of have like two that I was thinking of off the top of my head. So kind of going along with you talking about giving treats when they're over that threshold, they're nervous, they might not want to take treats. I also don't want to lure my dog closer to something that they're scared of with food. And then they're like, well, I'm now conflicted. I really wanted that hot dog, but now I'm way too close to this stranger, and it could set off a bigger reaction. So I don't want to lure them closer to something they're scared of with food. It's not going to make them feel better about it.
That's so true.
And then the second one I think would just be that, which I didn't really know for a while until I got into this industry too, is that a lot of vets, or I think most vets, don't really know or study in school dog behavior or body language. They're really focused on the health and all that stuff, which is wonderful. But unless there's technically like a vet behavioralist, a lot of times they might not have as full of an understanding of your own dog's behavior or body language. So you have to be their advocate for your dog. You know your dog better than anybody else. You're the one that needs to be there, making sure that they're comfortable, because you assume that they know, but they might not. They might not know.
That just made my whole day that you brought that up, because I've thought that a million times, but I wasn't thinking about that during this episode. And since this episode is all about vet visits and dogs being nervous and behavior, I'm so glad. See, this is why I asked this question at the end. So we don't miss these little gems. But yeah, like, listen, I love vets. I work very closely with a lot of them. I refer to them for a lot of my clients to go get checked and to become, patients of theirs. And I love vets. We all have to work together. We're all part of the dog care team here. So no hate, but like, yeah, I think that is a huge sometimes problem for pet parents that don't know this. And vets are so, I mean, they go to medical school, they have a degree, like they're very smart people. And to go to them and say, my dog's doing this or that with their behavior, like, what do you think? What should I do? Unfortunately, being a trainer for this long now, I've heard too many stories of vets I don't know, but their vet at whatever place they go to saying, do this, do that. And I'm not happy with some of the things that are said where I'm like, oh, I would never do that.
Yes.
And again, not to shame them. I think they're doing the best they can. They obviously love animals and love dogs and are trying to, but to me, it comes down to, I feel, one person's opinion. I feel like vets, unless they have, they're a board certified veterinary behaviorist, or they have dog training credentials, appropriate ones, alongside being a veterinarian, which is rare, unless I've had vet behaviorists, they're out there. But unless that's the case, I don't feel like they should be giving behavior or training advice in the same way that someone asks me, my dog has a rash, what should I do? I'm like, go to the vet. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not a vet. I have no idea. Like, I could say, oh, put this cream on, or I tried this. Like, I could say something, but it might not be, and probably is not the correct answer, where you need to go see the professional that knows that and has the credentials and the experience for that to give you the appropriate answer. So I think that's how I view it. And I think that's so important, because not that your vet doesn't know anything or doesn't have anything nice to give you feedback on with that, but better safe than sorry, because I've heard a lot, just like with the medical stuff, a lot of things that can make it worse, a lot of things that are not appropriate or up to date or scientifically backed of advice being given in areas that person's not the professional for that to be giving that advice. So yeah, you don't want your heart surgeon doing your eye surgery. They're different fields for a reason, Yeah. So love that. Thank you for sharing that. So important. And, I think this was great, because at some point here, hopefully we'll be going back into the vet office. I know perhaps some people are allowed in. Who knows what's going on? Oh, so cute. Sorry for those listening. We're getting another glimpse of the cute dog here. So I'm glad we got to cover this topic, because like you said, most dogs are not thrilled, even if they're not really worried, they're usually not thrilled. Oh, wait a minute. Not going to leave yet. I just remembered one important thing about the vet behaviorist or the vet. Last thing, if your dog is debilitated, is really showing aggression, is really chronically anxious at the vet, and you are really concerned or you don't know what to do, obviously hire a professional. We're here to help. That's why we do this. Hire a professional dog trainer, and any real good trainer is going to also probably recommend, if your dog's debilitated with anxiety and having an extremely difficult time, again, I know I do, we will also immediately seek out a board certified veterinary behaviorist and or your vet as a team to see if perhaps we need some type of medication to help with some of these visits. As you do the training, as you do the management, as you do the preparations and you try to work on it. I did want to say that because I think medicine in this world we live in, especially with dogs, becomes kind of taboo, or I'll do anything besides put my dog on something. And full disclosure, Freddie, during the pandemic and during the mobile vet visit, which was new for him and all that stuff going on, I noticed that I think as a trainer, especially, he's lucky to have, a professional here looking at him. But I was like, I think he's going to do better if we just give him a little something. It'll just help us get through this visit with him being less stressed overall. So we started him on a low dose of something. We got him on the proper exact dosage that we needed. And now I give him a little something before the vet arrives, and he does 10,000 times better than he would if he didn't. And we still do the training. We still have the cooperative care, but he does better. He's not as stressed. I'm shielding my baby of being that stressed out. So even I have put my dog on something with the help of my veterinarian to help those visits go better. So do you agree with that, Quinn? Have you had clients like that need that help?
Oh yeah, I think medication can be just a huge step in the right direction for a lot of dogs. Again, that's something you talk to your vet or veterinary behavioralist about. Pilsner, definitely, he is on meds when going to the vet. He is not a fan. It definitely helps him just not feel so panicked and freaked out. So yes, I totally agree. It is weird. There's still such a stigma, I think, around medication for dogs. But just like I take anxiety medication that helps me a lot. So does my dog. So we're in it together on that one. But yes, I think you're totally right. It can be a huge help for a lot of dogs out there.
Yeah. And I wouldn't rule it out. So if you feel like your dog could benefit from it, talk to your trainer, talk to your vet, talk to a veterinary behaviorist. They all should be working together to help you out. I think the buck kind of stops with the vet behaviorist being at the top if we're looking for what type of meds and the dosage for that behavioral issue, to really, really be, the end kind of opinion on it. And your vet obviously can help you as well. So speak to them and work with your trainer if you have one, or if you think you need one, hire one so that you can work on cooperative care and work on these things to help your dog, because the vet ain't going anywhere. Like you said earlier, Quinn, we have to go to the vet. And so that's something that is inevitable that we can't fully avoid forever. So we have to try to work through that. So again, Quinn, thank you so much for being here. Real quick before we sign off, let's take a moment. Where can people connect with you? What do you have going on? How can they see what you're up to?
Yeah, I think the best place probably to connect with me is Instagram. So my Instagram name is @pup_professor. You're welcome to reach out to me there, or my website, pupprofessor.com.
Lovely. Well, thank you again for being here, Quinn. Really appreciate your insight, and hopefully we'll help everyone listening have a better vet experience.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been really fun.
Of course. And again, with my little line for signing off, treat yourself and treat your dogs.